Will ESPN get sued by Oregon State and Washington State for helping the Big 12 grab the four corner schools last summer? Could the Big 12 be in trouble too? Well, there's one writer out there who thinks that is very possible. We're going to talk about it. I'm going to give you my opinion on it right after this word from our sponsor. Ladies and gentlemen, this episode is brought to you by Dutch Miller Automotive, where friends and family pricing means you get the best deal right up front on any new or pre-loved vehicle in stock every time. With brands like Chevrolet, Chrysler, Dodge, Jeep, Ram, Kia, Hyundai, Ford, GMC, Buick, and Subaru, the Dutch Miller Automotive family is always growing and ready to put you in the car or truck you've been searching for. Check out our inventory across West Virginia at DutchMillerAuto.com or come in today to the home of friends and family pricing, only at a Dutch Miller Automotive store near you. What is up? Welcome into another edition of Couz's Corner. Come on in, make yourself comfortable, belly yourself up to the bar, and let me pour you out another shot of top-shelf college football content. If you like top-shelf news and analysis around West Virginia, the Big 12, and college football realignment, this is a channel for you. Please like, share, comment, and subscribe. Let's get on with the show. In a recent article over on his blog that he does, Mr. Bill Farley, who has a Twitter account called Bill is Following the Money, he's been able to get his hands on a lot of the conference agreements between the Big 12 and several of their member institutions, especially the new member institutions. And he recently was able to get his hands on the ones of Cincinnati, and he's also been able to get his ones on Colorado, Utah, and Arizona State. All of, that's four of the new 8 Big 12 members. Well, according to Mr. Farley, he thinks ESPN may have, I don't know if the word colluded is right here, but he thinks ESPN may have played a big role in the dismantling of the Pac-12 and helping encourage basically the four corner schools to join the Big 12. And he's also kind of alluding to the fact that the Big 12 may have committed tortious interference here by reaching out to the Pac-12 schools first. So let's get into the article. First, here's his tweet. It says the three elements of the Big 12's new conference membership agreement, the three elements of the Big 12's new conference membership agreement that suggest the potential for litigation between the Pac-12 and the ESPN are: 1, waiver of application fees for new members from the Pac-12, which is unprecedented in other agreements. So basically, schools like Colorado, Arizona State, and Utah did not have to pay application fees for the Big 12. And most of the time when schools join conferences, they do. Number 2, transition incentive payment to Colorado to be the first Pac-12 member to join. I've talked about in previous episodes, Colorado got a $2.5 million signing bonus. We're going to talk about that more. Number 3, the inability of 2 new members, Utah and Arizona State, to make a legal representation that they contacted the Big 12 first. And in parentheses, he stresses that that's something that the Big 12 requested and received from both Cincinnati and Colorado. He goes on to say that Oregon State AD Scott Barnes recently suggested he was ready to start throwing counterpunches. Could litigation against ESPN be the first one? And let's keep in mind here, if ESPN gets sued, there's a possibility the Big 12 could end up being included in that lawsuit. Now, let's pull up the actual article that Bill was kind enough to share here. It says, I just received the University of Cincinnati's new member agreement with the Big 12, bringing my total of new member conference agreements to 9. There are 3 distinguishing characteristics among these 9 agreements. These differences suggest that ESPN, working through the Big 12, may have violated an undisclosed, quote, telecast agreement with the Pac-12 when it induced at least 2 of the four corner schools to jump ship. Now, these is pretty serious allegations here that Mr. Farley is saying could have happened. He's not saying they did, but possible. They also point to strategies ESPN may use to blow up the ACC. Goes on to say, if the Pac-12's agreement with ESPN was similar to the Big 12 and ESPN telecast agreement, effective in 2021, these 3 items, the ones I listed earlier, or he listed, may be grounds for a lawsuit by the Pac-12 against ESPN. The lawsuit would be patterned after the Big 12's threat to ESPN, after the Big 12 accused ESPN of trying to break up the Big 12. Now, we remember, I'm not going to go on and read the rest of this, but we remember when Texas and Oklahoma announced they were leaving the Big 12 for the SEC, we remember Bob Bowlesby making the claim. And matter of fact, he basically sent a cease and desist order to the ESPN saying, look, we heard that you guys have been in touch with at least one conference about poaching more Big 12 members to try to break up the conference. So he's saying, basically here, Mr. Farley is saying, or at least questioning, did the Big 12 kind of just do the same thing, or along with ESPN here, to break up the Pac-12? And he actually shares a copy of that letter. And again, I'll leave a link to this in my description if you guys want to read the whole thing and see this letter. It's the letter from the Big 12 to Burke Magnus at ESPN that Bob Bowlesby wrote back in 2021. Mr. Farley goes on to talk about how Oregon State Athletic Director Scott Barnes struck a similar tone to that of the Big 12 Commissioner Bowlesby when he wrote to the Oregon State fan base, I hear you and know that it feels like since August we have been on the receiving end of multiple gut punches. When that happens, you are faced with two options: exit the ring or throw counter punches. Hear this, Beaver Nation. The gloves are on, and we will not stray from our mission, end quote. And then Mr. Farley goes on to write, could legal action against ESPN following the Big 12 blueprint be imminent? Question mark. A review of my sampling of non-conference agreements finds three differences among new membership agreements: application fees paid or waived to join a new conference, financial assistance by media partners with conference moves, and representations made regarding communications by and between universities and the new conference before joining said conference. He goes on to say Texas and Oklahoma paid an application fee to the SEC. He's assuming it was a significant amount. UCLA paid $15 million to the Big Ten for joining. Oregon is paying $7.5 million to the Big Ten for joining. He goes on to talk about how Cincinnati, Big 12 specifically here, Cincinnati, paid the Big 12 a $2.5 million application fee for applying. However, the Big 12 did not require Colorado, Utah, or Arizona State to pay the application fee. Matter of fact, they gave Colorado a $2.5 million signing bonus. Now, he doesn't have Arizona's membership agreement with the Big 12, even though he has requested it. The Cal signed an agreement with the ACC, a membership agreement. Now, it doesn't mention anything about an application fee, but application fees are the norm, apparently. When schools join conferences, they pay an application fee. I'm assuming it's to cover the cost of integrating them into the league. But he goes on to say, when the ESPN and Fox helps top targets move conferences, Texas and Oklahoma, Oregon, and Colorado received financial assistance from their new conference media partners to assist in the transition to a new conference. ESPN will make a transition payment to Texas and Oklahoma, which is above and beyond what ESPN was scheduled to pay the SEC. I'm going to say that again. ESPN is paying a transition payment to Texas and Oklahoma, above and beyond what ESPN is scheduled to pay the SEC. So they're basically covering Texas and Oklahoma's application fees to the SEC, essentially, and maybe even more so. I'm not sure how that's legal, but it's happening. He goes on to say that payment should be made sometime between July 24 and July of 25. And he lists the contract language. He also talks about Fox giving Oregon the option to collect an advance of up to $10 million a year from future media revenues. Finally, the Big 12 is giving Colorado, the first Pac-12 school to jump to the Big 12, a $2.5 million transition bonus. And he shows the contract language again. And he goes on to say this financial aid to transition schools from one conference to another, funded by media companies, demonstrates how closely conferences work with their media partners to secure new members. And now that I don't disagree with that part. But what I do disagree with is the fact that he's kind of in a roundabout way claiming here that ESPN is paying the $2.5 million signing bonus to Colorado. And I don't know that I agree with that. That $2.5 million could have come out of the pockets of current Big 12 members. And also, let's remember, the Big 12, in a roundabout way at least, is getting an exit fee from Texas and Oklahoma. Now, basically, all they're doing is withholding future media revenue from them that they would have owed them as their buyout. They could be using that money to pay this $2.5 million. So, and yeah, is that money come from ESPN? I guess, but it was money the Big 12 would have gotten anyway. So it's not like ESPN was chipping in extra money in that case, if that's how it all went down. ESPN wasn't chipping in any extra money to pay for Colorado to come into the league. So I'm not sure I totally agree with Bill's assumption there. He goes on to talk about the legal part here. The Big 12 asked Pac-12 schools for legal cover. One purpose of representations and warranties and legal agreements is to get the party's story straight in the event of litigation. For example, you may have purchased a house where is as is, which is a representation by you and the seller that you both understand and agree any problems with the house after title passes are all yours. You don't pay an attorney to add meaningless representations to an agreement if there is no chance of a future dispute on that aspect of the transaction. Here's the, quote, we didn't tamper language from the Cincinnati Big 12 agreement. It says, UC represents and warrants that it made the initial contact with the conference about becoming a member of the conference, and that the conference did not contact UC about becoming a member of the conference. So basically it's saying, hey, UC reached out to the Big 12. The Big 12 did not commit tortious interference by trying to poach us away from the American. That's basically what it's saying in a nutshell. Colorado has basically the same language in their agreement. But here is Utah's agreement. Here's what it says in Utah's agreement. Utah represents and warrants that it requested the conference to send Utah an invitation to join as a member of the conference, and that the conference thereafter sent Utah an offer to become a member of the conference. Now, yes, the language is different, but how do we know that Utah still didn't make the initial phone call? Here it's talking about sending us the invitation, sending Utah the invitation. And it says Utah requested the conference to send an invitation. So Utah could have reached out to the Big 12 and said, hey, would you guys take us if we need a home? Conversations could have ensued, continued, went back and forth. Then when it got closer to crunch time, Utah could have said, hey, we need you to send us the invitation so that it doesn't look like you guys reached out to us first. Because you didn't. This could just be a difference in the way attorneys write up the language. Each school, I'm sure, has different attorneys here. And the Big 12 also has attorneys. You don't think the Big 12 attorneys were okay with this? I think Mr. Farley might be barking up the wrong tree here. I love Mr. Farley's writing. I think he does a fantastic job. And this is a well-written article. And I love how he gives examples and puts screenshots of the actual agreement languages in here. But I just don't agree with his assertions here that this means that the Big 12 reached out to the schools first. I disagree with that. I don't think you can. I think that's a leap to assume that just based on that. Now, Arizona State's, it's not in there at all, basically. So now that one maybe does make you scratch your head a little bit. Why didn't they put some language in there? But just because the language isn't in there doesn't mean anything shady or illegal happened. You know what I mean? I think there's a lot of assertions being made here that may not be accurate. But he goes on to say Utah and ASU could not represent in a legal document that they indicated or initiated contact with the Big 12, suggesting the Big 12 made the first move. And again, that's an awful big assumption there, Mr. Farley, that you're making here. Awfully big assumption. It says, in summary, the Big 12 provided the public with a glimpse into the content of secretive telecast contracts when they threatened ESPN with litigation over tampering with their members. New member agreements disclosed by universities since that time indicate how tampering could take place. 1, waivers of application fees. 2, financial assistance from media companies to help universities transition to new conferences. And 3, conferences making unsolicited offers to universities to defect from their current homes. Unsolicited contact seems to be the practice that is most likely to be litigated, since this is the practice the Big 12 asked joining members to refute. Since Utah and ASU could not refute that the Big 12 initiated contact, this may be the first place that Scott Barnes throws a counterpunch. Now, Mr. Farley could be onto something here, and maybe he's right. And at the very least, some attorneys probably need to do a better job here of covering their butt. But also, just to assume that the Big 12 initiated contact because it's not in writing on a document that they didn't. Look, I'm not an attorney. I don't work in the legal department. I've never claimed it. I didn't even stay at Holiday Inn Express last night. But I think this is a stretch. Now, you let me know in the comments, do you think Mr. Farley has a great point here? Or do you agree with me that this is a stretch and that lawsuits probably aren't going to be justified in this situation. I want to hear your thoughts. I want to take an opportunity right now to give a shout out to my VIP channel members of this episode, Chris D., Timothy Hetrick Jr., Denny Allen, and Tom Dean. If you want to join this elite club, hit the join button below or go to my channel homepage, click the join button beside my profile photo. It'll show you the both levels that are available, the perks that go with those levels. And by the way, I have added some members-only videos to that, which I have yet to list as the perks. If you want to take advantage of those perks, you can do so for as little as $2.99 a month or $4.99 a month, 2 different levels. Obviously, more perks with the higher level. If you want to take advantage of that, click the join button. The money comes right out of your bank account each month. Easy peasy. But you can also cancel at any time, so you're not obligated long term. Also, you can check out this video right here about conference realignment. I appreciate you tuning into this video. Have a top shelf day and cue country roads.